shocked too. We were both actually just absolutely shocked 'cause this news came out of nowhere.
Flabbergasted.
Did you guys ever sense that the Crew are going to move, especially to a city like Austin?
You know, hindsight is certainly 2020, and you know, especially in those first few days after the announcement, there was a lot of you know, looking back and going, what signs did we miss? Or you know, people that may have called his legitimacy into question from the start, you know, maybe, you know, I don't know, they were probably called conspiracy theorists on some level. And, you know, it turns out that they were right. But, you know, there's been an in-joke in our fandom for a long time. If you're familiar with the term massive, it's kind of something that we use to refer to ourselves. And it began because, you know, we know that we're not the biggest market in the country. We're only the 14th biggest city in the country, and you know, media markets we're on the low end in the league. So we kind of are self-effacing a little bit, and that's where massive started from. So, you know, there was a joke a long time ago that, you know, anytime something bad happened, that the Crew were going to move to Vegas. And, you know, we kind of made fun of ourselves by saying, oh, we don't have a stadium roof, and oh, there's no pedestrian bridge over the train tracks, and blah, 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 blah. So the Crew moving has been a tongue-in-cheek thing, you know, for us for a long time. For a legitimate move, no one saw this coming. I kind of got tipped off to its possibility about 40 minutes before Grant Wall broke that story on Twitter that night. And even then, I didn't believe it. I thought, "There's no way. There's no way. We're the Columbus Crew. We're successful. This business is viable. We're the first. You know, how could they do this to us?" So until I saw Grant Wall's tweet, I still didn't believe it. So I don't think anybody really saw. Maybe if they saw it coming, they didn't see this specific scenario playing out.
Well, let me ask you, what was more shocking for the fan base? The fact that they're the thought of relocation, or the fact that it's relocating to Austin, Texas, where it's kind of the same type of city. You get the Columbus is a little bit different, but you know, you both are smaller in the sense that you guys don't have many professional teams. It's got more of that college feel with OSU being in Columbus and UT being in Austin. What was more shocking?
Well, you know, the great comedy of this is that I don't know that you could pick more of a doppelganger city in America if you tried. Austin and Columbus are very, very much, you know, two similar places.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Ohio State and the University of Texas thing. That's just, those are the two biggest universities on the planet, and the football team for those universities completely and totally dominates the local sports landscape. So, you know, if he thinks that he has, you know, issues competing with Ohio State and Columbus, my God, what are you doing going to Austin, you idiot? But, you know, we're also two extremely fast-growing cities, and, you know, we're two of the, you know, quote-unquote millennial hipster meccas, and, you know, we're two cities with a huge craft brewing scene, and everything, you know, that is Austin is also Columbus. And so, yeah, I was kind of shocked when it was Austin, but, you know, nothing, you know, I decided early in this movement, in this scenario, in this situation, that I was going to stop looking for logic in logicless scenarios, because you could kill yourself doing that, man. You could stay up all night going, what does it all mean? And, you know, have the X-Files theme song on repeat in the background. And, you know, was it shocking? Yeah. But I tried to not try to find logic in logicless scenarios.
Well, let me ask you this. The city of Columbus, you have the Blue Jackets, NHL. You have, obviously, the college team, OSU. And then you have the Crew. And, you know, where's the Crew's importance in that city? Because Precourt kind of said, okay, the stadium's not good. quote unquote, I guess, bad fans, bad market. To those reasons for leaving, how are you coming back towards that? What is your counter argument?
Well, I would encourage Anthony Precourt to not confuse his mistakes with hardships. Those are two completely different things. You know, remember when Mafre Stadium was built, there was no other professional soccer stadium. So, you know, to compare that place to Orlando's new stadium, or Sacramento or Sporting's or anything that's been built since 1999 is an exercise in futility, and it's irrelevant. Because everything that's been built since that stadium went up, our tiny demon fortress, our little erector set, it has had the good fortune of looking at all of the things that now, in hindsight, may have been done a little bit better and building accordingly. To your question of, how relevant is the crew here, I'm not going to pretend that it's in any way, shape, or form as massive as Ohio State football, because literally nothing in the country is. This is a team that gets over 100,000 people for a practice. That's lunacy. And I am one of the most diehard Ohio State fans in the world. And I somehow managed to care about two things at once. As adults, we can do that. You love your wife, love your kids. You can love more than one thing. That's
Absolutely.
just how our brain. But if he had been trying to build a new stadium somewhere in Columbus and was just getting pushback from everywhere and everything, then I might be able to say, well, I kind of understand it. But he wasn't. He didn't try, and he straight up lied about caring about the city and wanting to keep the team here. It's sad, and he really has done a number on his legacy. And this is one of those scenarios where you can say to someone, just because you own something doesn't mean it's yours. The Columbus Crew, any soccer team, is not a car. It's not a brick and mortar shop. It's a community asset. And you can say, oh, well, that's a pretty, you sound smarmy when you say that. But I'm just using his words. When he took over the team, he said, I look at the Columbus Crew as a valued community asset. So I'm just using his words to illuminate to everybody how disastrous this has been. The city of Columbus loves the Columbus Crew, and we're the foundation of this league. So when you see 40,000 people at a Sounders game and 70,000 people at an Atlanta United game, that they wouldn't be able to be there if it weren't for the 1.0 teams. It's very true. I always think of this kind of league as a building that's growing, and every time you turn around, you go, man, I could have sworn it wasn't that big 5 minutes ago. And it's true. And, it's like if you were building an addition onto that building and you go, hey, we need a new penthouse. Why don't we just cut out the foundation? There's plenty of material down there. Your building's going to fall. Your organization is only as strong as the structure upon which it was built. And to tear away the first soccer team in the league, the charter member, from their community, it speaks to how little you value that third star on your crest that we were told was, representative of community in the for club, for country, for community marketing slogan. So they're full of shit, and they're showing that if they, that they want to do this whenever they want, and we're not going to let it happen.
You did mention that you didn't think Columbus or the Crew were as relevant as an Ohio State, which is obviously it's really hard for any MLS team to compete with a college football powerhouse or whatnot. And it did strike me as kind of the same issues that go on here in Dallas, where you talk about being a fifth wheel and kind of not being relevant in the market. And did Precourt and the crew make an effort to grow and market the club well? Because in Dallas we don't see marketing at all. We and it shows on television. You see that the crowds are sparse, and the only way you really know. I mean, you saw actually last night. If any of you guys saw the Frisco Bowl, there were some comments going on through Twitter saying, "Oh, I used to play high school football there." Oh, I used to watch high school football there. Oh yeah, a professional soccer team plays there. It's FC Dallas, and it seems like the team is not relevant even in the place of where it is. Are the crew like kind of like that marketing wise, that they're not marketed well at all?
There are arguments to be made that would excuse me, that would prove that, point as valid. If you go to crewnotdoneyet.com, there's a timeline there, and it details a lot of the answers to your question and it does so more eloquently than I can do right now. But we kind of bottomed out a little bit in 2011. We had just come off of 07, 08, 09, and 2010 as these peak years where we won a cup, we won 2 supporter trophies, supporter shields. There were club legends on that team, that will never die in the hearts of crew fans. And it was we were starting over. And in 2011, we kind of bottomed out attendance wise, and we built ourselves back up. And every year since that year through 2016, we were leading the league in year over year attendance growth and, year over year organic attendance growth, which is, I would argue, way more important because, attendance growth, when you look at somebody like San Jose, when they play at Buckshaw, that stadium capacity is like 9,000?
Yeah.
So when they move to Avaya and it's the first year there and they go from 9 to 19, oh my God, they lead the league in attendance growth. But that's, how artificial is that?
Sure.
When you're talking about going from a high school football stadium to, the newest soccer stadium in the league, of course you're going to, enjoy some significant attendance growth. When you do it at a place that was built with Lincoln Logs in, 1999, and you do that, 20 years later, and you sustain it from a 5-year perspective or a 10-year perspective, it's meaningful. It's a sign of good health. I always like to remind people that growing can be disastrous to an organization. You need to grow in a responsible way, and doing it at 700 billion%. How sustainable is that? You don't have the infrastructure there as an organization to deal with it or to sustain it. When you do it responsibly, and when you do it in a market that has been proven as a top consumer of that product, that is something that you put on page 1 of your yearly report. And so for them to talk about how we're not invested, how the city doesn't care, it's a lie. And there are a lot of things that have been done this past year to inflate their shady business metrics, and we've exposed all of them. Again, if you go to crewnotdoneyet.com, there's a lot of it there, and it'll blow your brain apart to see how we've been played by this ownership group and by this league after having been the foundation for 23 years. It's really disgraceful.
Well, let me ask you a question about the overall perspective from the league, because this is something Armand and I have discussed quite a bit on the show. And when we began this podcast, we talked about the advantage and disadvantage from the expansion clubs, say probably from '08 on to the original clubs. And on the field, it kind of favored more of the original clubs because they had more of the structure. But off the field, when it came to marketing, it was all the expansion clubs. Do you feel the same way in looking at the league, where the Columbus Crew are kind of lumped in with Colorado, New England, Dallas, as far as marketing